Chapter 4. Pressure Points. By the start of the next week, the house no longer felt unsettled in a quiet way. The tension had not turned into anything too obvious or overly dramatic, but it had become easier to notice in small, persistent ways. It showed up in timing, in tone, and in the way conversations started and ended just a little too quickly. Everyone was still trying, but the effort itself had begun to feel heavier than before, an organized mess that was slowly losing its structure. Mina could sense it the moment she walked through the door after school. Nothing was clearly wrong, but nothing felt fully at ease either. That afternoon, Hanna was in the living room again, practicing English with her translator. "I am improving. I am confident. I can do this." The translator repeated each sentence immediately after she spoke, filling the room with a steady, mechanical rhythm that carried farther than she probably realized. David sat at the dining table with his laptop open, trying to concentrate. His workspace was starting to feel like it was shrinking. The translator repeated the sentence again. Then again. David paused, his hands resting on the keyboard as he stared at the screen. "Hanna," he said carefully, "could you lower the volume just a little bit?" Hanna looked up quickly and adjusted the settings. "Yes. Sorry," she said. "I practice." She replied in a tone that seemed very defensive. "I know," David replied. "You're doing great. I just need a little quiet to work." Hanna nodded, but after that moment something shifted. Over the next few days, Hanna began to spend more time in the office. At first it was subtle. She would stay in the room a little longer after practicing, sitting on the edge of the bed or looking through her phone. Then she started bringing her meals in there occasionally, saying she wanted to review English while she ate. By midweek it had become a pattern. She stayed in the room for most of the day. She came out when necessary, but less often than before. Mina noticed immediately. David noticed as well, though in a different way. The office had been his space, his sanctuary, and even though he had given it up willingly, he still needed access to certain things. Books, documents, and tools that he had not yet moved all lived there. The first time he knocked on the door, he hesitated. "Hanna," he said. "Can I come in for a second?" There was a brief pause before she responded. "Yes," she said. David opened the door slowly. Hanna stood up almost immediately, as if she had been caught doing something wrong. "I just need to grab a few things," David said, gesturing toward the shelf. Hanna nodded quickly and stepped aside, giving him more space than he needed. The room felt different. It no longer felt like his office, but it did not fully feel like her room either. It felt like something in between, a clearly obscure space that belonged to no one. David grabbed the book he needed and gave a small nod. "Thanks." "Yes," Hanna replied softly. The exchange was polite, but it was uncomfortable in a way neither of them could explain. The second time it happened, the pause at the door lasted longer. The third time, Hanna had already moved her things slightly out of the way before he even stepped inside, as if she were trying to anticipate what he might need. Each visit was brief. Each one was respectful. And each one felt just a little more awkward than the last, a minor inconvenience of discomfort. At dinner, Hanna spoke less than before. She still smiled, but it was that wide, polite smile that hid her deep frustration. She hesitated more often, weighing every word before saying it, careful not to offend anyone. Mina tried to keep the conversation moving, asking questions and including her whenever she could, but the rhythm never quite settled. Sarah noticed everything. She had always been good at reading a room, and now the house felt like a space filled with indirect signals that no one was openly acknowledging. At first, she tried to keep things balanced, stepping in with light conversation or gentle reassurance. But as the days went on, her energy began to fade. She started going to her room earlier in the evening, saying she needed rest. "I'm just tired," she said when Mina asked. Mina nodded, but she could tell it was more than that. It was not just physical, it was emotional. The house had become a small crowd of people living in separate worlds. One evening, Mina found Hanna sitting alone in the office again. "You've been in here a lot," Mina said gently. Hanna looked up, her expression uncertain. "I don't want to make problem." Mina frowned, trying to be reassuring. "You're not making a problem," Mina replied. "Don't forget the articles, by the way." Hanna shook her head slightly. "I think I do. I talk too loud. I say wrong things. I use room that not mine." Mina stepped inside and sat down. "This is your space right now," she said. You're not doing anything wrong. Hanna looked down at her hands. I feel like I must stay out of way. Mina felt a tightness in her chest. You don't have to disappear to make things easier, she said quietly. Hanna did not respond right away. Across the house, David stood in the kitchen staring at the counter. The house was quiet again. Not peaceful, just quiet, a deafening silence. He could feel the distance growing. Hanna was staying in the room more. Sarah was retreating into hers. Mina was trying to hold everything together like a bridge made of glass. He exhaled slowly, running a hand over his face. It was not one big problem. It was everything in small pieces, building over time into what felt like a geyser. The next evening, Mina walked into the kitchen and found David sitting at the table with his laptop open. He was not working, he was scrolling. She stepped closer and looked at the screen. Apartment listings. She did not say anything at first. David noticed her reflection and paused. I'm just looking, he said quietly. Mina leaned against the counter. For Hanna. David hesitated, then nodded. I think it might help, he said. Give everyone a little more space before this turns into something bigger. Especially with the baby on its way. We will probably need the room. Mina took a slow breath. She's pulling away because she thinks she's the problem, she said. I know, David replied. That's part of why this might help for her too. It can give her a little space to call her own. Mina studied him carefully. Or it might make her feel like she doesn't belong here at all. David did not respond right away. He looked back at the screen. He was eyeballing several small apartments nearby. I'm trying to prevent things from getting worse, he said. Mina nodded slowly. She understood his reasoning, and that was what made it so difficult. It was a definite maybe in a world of ugly choices. She glanced toward the hallway where the office door was closed. Then she looked back at her dad. We're not there yet, she said. David closed the laptop. I know, he replied. But the idea had already taken hold. A true fiction that was becoming more real with every hour of silence.